Hello, welcome to the Opinionistic Podcast. I'm your host, John Malone. And as for our guest, from Houston, Texas, I give you author and test pilot, Pat Daly.
Hey, Jamie. Pleased to be here. Thanks for having me on your show.
Anytime. So I've heard you recently written the book.
Yeah. I recently published a book titled Spark, and it's a near future science fiction novel that deals with augmented reality, artificial intelligence, and solar power.
Okay, that's interesting. And what gave you that idea to write a book about artificial intelligence and technology?
Well, I've been a lifelong reader, so I love to read, and I always hoped that I would be able to write a book. But life gets in the way, and you have to do other things to put food on the table. So I never really had the time, although I did make a couple of along the way. And then um, a few years ago, a game called Pokemon Go was big. And my daughters were both playing that. And I thought, well, if they're spending this much time doing it, then I need to figure this out too. And the concept behind Pokemon Go, besides, you got to catch them all and all that kind of stuff, the way they manifested the game had virtual constructs, the little Pokemon, displayed over a real background. And you see this all on your phone or whatever device you're using. I always use my phone. And I thought, oh, geez, that's brilliant. A way to superimpose the virtual over the real. And it turns out that's called augmented reality. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool if we could have a theme park, Disney sized, where you could do this on a much bigger scale? And so that got me thinking about the book, and I sat down and started writing it, and the rest is history.
Wow. Okay. Nice. Is there like a plot line for this book you've written?
Yeah. Um, it starts out with a young man, and his life is idyllic. He's got loving parents. He's taken care of. He's a good student. Uh, and they go off to this theme park, Spark, because both of his parents are big gamers, and have a great time. They do well. And then when they return home, a second Korean War breaks out. And long story short, the young protagonist ends up orphaned. And he doesn't do well in the foster care system that we have in the U.S. And things start a gradual downhill slide for him, and he eventually gets to the point where he discovers a letter that his mother had actually written to him before she died, and the closing sentence in the letter is "Find me, save me." And he thinks this doesn't make any sense because he was holding her in his arms when she died. So what's to find? What's to save? Why even write the letter? But then when he gets to the park and he's playing in one of the quests, one of the characters says that exact quote, says, "Find me, save me." And now he's got the bug. He's got to figure out where the quote came from, why the character is saying it, and what made his mother write that in what was to be her final letter to him. So it's largely about his quest to find the answer to that question, the people he meets along the way, the things good and bad that happen in this theme park, and then the uh, the resolution at the end.
Okay. Okay, that's a very interesting concept. I like that.
Yeah, are you a gamer by any chance?
Well, I'm kind of a gamer, yeah.
Oh, then you'd probably love it.
Okay. Cool. Cool.
What
And
what? Oh, sorry.
oh, I was going to say, do you plan on writing any more books in the future with the same concept or same theme, whatever?
Yes, absolutely. Actually, I thought this was going to be a one book series. Um, is that even proper to call it a series of one? Uh, in any case, I thought it was going to be a single standalone book. And it wasn't until I wrote the very last sentence that I realized that there was far more of the story to tell. And so, even as I sent the first book off to publishers and agents, I started writing the second book. And that book is now with my publisher, and it should be out Christmas time.
Okay. That's nice. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what inspired you to become an author or write books for a living?
Well, I've done the full-time day job thing for an awful long time. I was in the U.S. Air Force as a test pilot, and I did some of that work afterwards for civilian companies, and I still do consulting along those lines and working on a project now. Uh, but I was really surprised at how much joy I found in the actual process of writing and creating. And um, it turned out to be something that, oh gosh, I wish I had started this a long time ago because it's so much fun. Uh, Even revising uh, the book was fun because it got my creative juices flowing, and I absolutely loved the whole process. And I was naive enough in the beginning to think that, well, I write the book and I send it off. Gets published, and next thing you know, I'm being awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature. Um, that turned out not to be true. Uh, and I got some very good, very painful feedback from some of my writer group friends, and that started me down the second version, third version. I ended up with 8 different drafts of the novel before we settled on the one that got published. So a lot more work going into it than I expected, but also very rewarding and for me very pleasant work.
Okay. Okay. And for you, what do you think has been the highs and the lows of being an author?
Probably the highest was the very first piece of fan mail I got. A young man named Matthew had been given this book by his mother, and when he finished it, he sat down and wrote an honest to God letter, handwritten, put in an envelope, addressed, stamped, carried to the mailbox, posted, and sent on my way. And that has absolutely been the high mark to get a physical piece of mail that is not just junk, um, and turns out to be a personal letter thanking me for having written the book. So I'd say that's definitely the high.
Okay. Incredible.
Yeah.
And yeah. And if someone were to write a book about you, what do you think its title would be?
uh, how about shorter than average?
Okay. There's a nice ring to it.
Yeah, I think it could be a little catchy and get people at least curious enough to pick it up and find out just what is he talking about when he says shorter than average. Um, One of the things I found in titling my first book, it's titled Spark. Well, it turns out there's several other books. Some of them have sold very well out there named Spark that I did not write. And so I think if you can come up with a more original or eye-catching, ear-catching title, that can certainly help attract the attention of potential buyers.
Hmm. Okay. I like that. Where was the most amazing sunset you've ever seen?
The most amazing sunset?
Hmm.
Mm, I would say I was in Croatia, in Dubrovnik, in the old walled city. And I had to go there for work, but I realized it was probably going to be a once in a lifetime opportunity. So my wife took some time off of work. She went with me, and uh, one evening when we're not working, we're just wandering around the old city. And there is a place called, there's actually two of them. There's the Hole in the Wall 1 and the Hole in the Wall 2. And both of them are entered literally through a hole in the old city walls out into what is essentially just a little patio that's kind of been scabbed on the outside of the old city walls. And those patios have been turned into bars. Uh, and from there, you could watch the sunset. And it was just the entire experience of sitting there, having a beer with my wife, and watching the sunset beautifully on the horizon in a place that I'd never been before and probably never will go again was just truly memorable. How
Wow.
about you? Where was your most memorable sunset?
Well, I think I'd say it would be in Croatia as well, on the island of Hvar, which is like a few miles south from Split. And
Okay.
yeah, it's been an amazing sunset. And the view, oh my gosh, the view was amazing. I would love to go to Croatia again, especially on that resort my family stayed in. It was just amazing.
Yeah, I imagine we didn't. Yeah, we did a little road trip around. Went over into Bosnia, but we never went to Split and didn't go to any of the islands. That sounds like that would have been beautiful.
Oh yeah, it's quite a treat. Did you have any role models when you were growing up?
Yeah, and you're pulling out the inner geek in me. I would say my biggest role model was fictional, and that was Mr. Spock on the original Star Trek series. The character played by Leonard Nimoy. And I always wanted to be him, so smart, so cool, logical all the time. Um, I didn't necessarily turn out that way, but he was definitely a role model for me.
Wow. Okay. Great. What what could change your life? What is something that could change your life forever?
Ooh, and I'm going to assume we go with change it for the better.
Hmm. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, because there's plenty of things that can change your life forever and are not pleasant. Um, but I'm going to stick to the better side of the coin. Um, I would think. Now, does it have to be a physical thing, a piece of technology, or could it be a world event, or give me
Could
some more
be
boundaries
anything.
on this, would you? Okay. I would say the ability of everyone to live a life free of fear. Now there's plenty of things to be afraid of, from spider bites to spider monkeys to COVID to monkeypox to and and that's not the kind of fear I'm talking about. I guess I'm talking about the fear that lurks in the background of encountering violence, encountering uh, a life ending, horrible, debilitating illness, a life free of fear that the money's going to run out and you're going to end up living under a bridge somewhere, or um, you're going to lose your mind through dementia or something else and end up having to have someone wipe your butt as you age. Um, I'd like to have a life free of those kind of fears.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. So, if you were going to write a brand new book series, what would it be about?
Well, I've already started a third book, and this one is completely different universe, completely different set of characters. And one of the things I'm struggling with is I've deliberately made the first series family friendly. I wanted to write something that um, my kids could pick up and read someday and not go, Dad, you're a perv. So I kept all the steamy sex scenes out of there, but I would like to write something a little more adult. And because I'm the sci-fi geek that I am, I've set the that book in the farther future, and it involves more adult themes, clash of galactic civilizations, and the very struggle for the survival of our souls, not our bodies, but our souls.
Okay. Interesting. Well, hopefully that new book goes well.
Yeah, I hope so. Gonna have to publisher see if they're interested. Um, but I think they're fairly keen on me finishing the first series before I pivot on to the next one.
Okay. That's cool. Cool. What was the strangest dream you've had?
I've listened to some of your other podcasts, and I heard that question before. I don't remember the guest you had on, and I started thinking about that. Um, and and I'm a big fan of dreams. I dream a lot, and often those dreams make it one way or another into uh, into my writing. There are a few scenes that are just, if you look at them in terms of the overall book Spark, they're almost throwaway scenes. They're just there. They nudge the plot along a little bit, but not. They're not terribly critical to the overall work, and yet they've come from dreams I've had, and um, I'll just I'll just pick one of those. Um, I was, dreams are hard to describe anyway, but um, I don't even remember where I had stumbled across it, but the ancient Hittites had a form of writing and also a rudimentary postal service, and they would fold clay into almost a pillow shape, and then they would write their letter on that clay, let it harden, and then once it dried, they would take another layer of clay and wrap it around that first letter, if you will, and that became the envelope. And it was a perfect way to have a secure message and also have, the wet clay on the outside that you um, inscribe with an address. And so when you get the letter, you break it open and then pull the actual letter out from inside. And I had a bizarre dream where someone was telling me that I had to get the message somewhere, and the only way to do it was to use a Hittite letter. Uh, and so I woke up remembering that. I woke up, I eventually included that in Spark. Uh, but it's just bizarre to me that in this day and age, you could have a dream urging you to use an ancient technology, an ancient, time consuming, inefficient technology to send a message. So I'll just go with that.
Okay. Great. Great. And fine. And that's actually all we have for this episode. It was great having you here, Pat, talking about your recent books and your next upcoming books and all your writer friends and everything else. It's fabulous.
Thanks so much for having me, Peter. I really appreciate it.
Anytime. And until next time, stay opinionated.